My name is Ella Carter, and I'm 29 years old. I live in Chicago and work as a marketing manager for a mid-sized tech firm. If you saw me today, you'd probably think I'm one of those strong, independent women who has it all figured out. And maybe now I am. But if you knew where I came from, if you knew the way my own parents treated me growing up, you'd understand why my story isn't just about a wedding. It's about finally standing up for myself after a lifetime of being treated like I wasn't good enough. This is the story of how my parents tried to humiliate me on the most important day of my life, my wedding, and how I turned the tables on them in a way they never expected. I grew up in a middle-class American family. My dad, Richard Carter, worked as an accountant, and my mom, Linda Carter, stayed home with us when we were little before eventually taking a job as a receptionist at a dentist's office. I had two siblings, my older sister, Ashley, and my younger brother, Ryan. Ashley was the golden child from day one. Blonde, slim, outgoing, she was the girl everyone noticed. She was prom queen, cheer captain, homecoming queen, basically the walking definition of perfect daughter in my parents' eyes. Ryan was the youngest and the only son, so of course he was spoiled. My parents made excuses for everything he did, whether it was failing classes, getting into trouble, or later, switching from job to job without taking responsibility. And then there was me, Ella, the middle child. I wasn't ugly, but I wasn't Ashley pretty. I wasn't dumb, but I wasn't Ryan special. I was just there. From the time I was a kid, I learned that in my parents' eyes, I would always be second best. I can't remember a single holiday or family gathering where I wasn't compared to Ashley. If Ashley got an A on a test, my parents celebrated with cake. If I got an A, the response was, good. That's what you're supposed to do. If Ashley wore a new dress, my mom would gush over how gorgeous she looked. If I wore something new, it was always, that color doesn't really flatter you, Emily. You should take notes from Ashley. One Thanksgiving, I was 16, and I had just been accepted into an honors program at school. I was so proud. I told my family, expecting at least a smile. Instead, my dad glanced at Ashley and said, that's nice, Emily. But did you hear? Ashley just got asked to model for a local boutique. That's something people actually notice. That was the moment it sank in. No matter what I achieved, no matter how hard I worked, it would never be enough. By the time I was in college, I had stopped trying to impress my parents. Instead, I focused on myself. I worked part-time jobs, earned scholarships, and eventually built a career in marketing. I rented my own apartment, paid my own bills, and took care of myself without asking them for a dime. You'd think that would earn me some respect. But in my parents' world, the only thing that mattered was status. And status, to them, was measured by who you married and how much money they had. Then came Jake Mitchell, the man who changed my life. I met Jake at a work conference in New York. He was a software engineer, soft-spoken but witty, with a kind of kindness that felt rare in a world full of shallow people. We started talking, then dating, and for the first time in my life, I felt truly seen. Jake didn't care that I wasn't the pretty sister or the golden child. He loved me for who I was, sarcastic humor, messy hair, book obsession and all. 2 years later, he proposed. Not in some flashy way, but in a way that was so us. We were cooking dinner in his apartment when he pulled out a ring and said, Ella, life is chaos, but I want to go through every bit of it with you. Will you marry me? I cried. Not just because I was happy, but because no one had ever chosen me before. Telling my parents, though, that was a disaster. We were sitting in their living room. Ashley was sprawled on the couch, scrolling through Instagram, and Ryan was glued to his Xbox. I said, Mom, Dad, I have some news. Jake proposed. We're getting married. For a split second, my mom's face lit up, but the first words out of her mouth were, what does his family do? He's an engineer, I said. His parents are retired teachers. Her smile faded. Teachers? Oh, Ella, don't you think you should aim a little higher? My dad leaned forward. Is he in management? Partner at his firm. No, Dad. He's a software engineer. He's good at what he does. Ashley laughed. Actually laughed. So basically, you're marrying a regular 9-to-5 guy. Cute. I clenched my fists. He's hardworking. He loves me. And that's all that matters. But to my parents, it wasn't. They wanted a doctor, a lawyer, a CEO, someone they could brag about at their golf club and church gatherings. From that day on, every wedding planning conversation turned into a lecture. You should reconsider, Ella. This will embarrass us in front of our friends. Ashley's fiancé comes from a family with money. People will compare, and you'll look cheap. At least let us plan the wedding, so it doesn't look so small. The truth was, I didn't want a huge, expensive wedding. Jake and I agreed on something intimate, meaningful, with close friends and family, not some over-the-top show. But my parents treated it like a scandal. One evening, I came home to grab something I'd left in my parents' kitchen. I was about to walk in when I heard my mom on the phone with her friend. She said, "Honestly, I'm embarrassed. Ashley's wedding is going to be stunning, grand venue, designer gown, everything. And then Ella's, a backyard wedding with some boring engineer. It's humiliating. I almost don't want people to come." My heart dropped. I'd spent my whole life fighting for their approval. And here they were, calling the happiest day of my life an embarrassment. That night, I cried harder than I had in years. But when the tears dried, something inside me shifted. For the first time in my life, I thought enough. If they wanted to call my wedding an embarrassment, fine. But they had no idea what I was about to do. Because I wasn't just going to stand there and take it. When I woke up the morning after overhearing my mother call my wedding an embarrassment, I felt different. I wasn't the same girl who had spent her entire life begging for scraps of validation. I wasn't the insecure middle child desperate to be noticed. I was a woman about to marry the love of her life, and I wasn't going to let anyone ruin it. The very next week, I called my parents. "Mom, Dad, I appreciate your concern," I said, my voice shaking but firm. "But this is my wedding, and Jake and I are paying for it ourselves. I don't need your money, and I don't need your approval." Silence. Finally, my dad snapped, "Don't be ridiculous, Ella. Without us, you'll embarrass yourself. People will laugh at you." I took a deep breath. Then let them laugh. Because I'd rather have a small, beautiful wedding with people who love me than a giant circus where I'm treated like a joke. I hung up before they could respond. My hands were trembling, but for the first time in my life, I felt powerful. Jake and I poured our hearts into planning the wedding we wanted. We rented a gorgeous outdoor venue in the suburbs with fairy lights, wildflowers, and an indie band instead of a big DJ. It wasn't cheap, but it wasn't extravagant either. It was ours. My friends helped me with DIY decorations. Jake's mom baked our cake. Every little detail felt like us. Meanwhile, my parents made their disapproval clear. They kept telling extended family members that Ashley's upcoming wedding was going to be the real event, and that mine was just a warm-up. They thought they were humiliating me. But what they didn't know was that I was planning something they'd never forget. Around this time, something shocking came to light. While organizing some paperwork for my student loan refinance, I accidentally stumbled upon old family financial records my dad had left in a folder at their house. Curiosity got the better of me, and when I opened it, my jaw dropped. It turned out that while my parents spent years boasting about Ashley's beauty and Ryan's potential, they were drowning in debt. My dad had maxed out multiple credit cards, and they had taken out loans they could barely manage, mostly to fund Ashley's lavish lifestyle and shopping sprees. And here they were, calling my modest wedding an embarrassment. It hit me. My parents' entire image was fake, a carefully constructed facade of wealth and prestige, while in reality, they were barely holding it together. I didn't set out to expose them, but when they tried to humiliate me publicly, I decided, why not let the truth come out? The day of my wedding finally arrived. I'll never forget walking down that aisle in my lace gown, seeing Jake's eyes filled with love. For once, I didn't care what my parents thought. I was happy, but they weren't. I noticed my mom whispering to a cousin, rolling her eyes at the decorations. My dad stood stiffly, as if the whole event was beneath him. Ashley, dressed in designer clothes, smirked like she was the star of the show. At the reception, my parents tried to hijack the spotlight. My dad gave a toast where he said, "Well, Ella always did things differently, some would say smaller, but I suppose this is nice." Some guests chuckled awkwardly. My face burned. But then, it was my turn to speak. I stood up, microphone in hand, my heart pounding. "First, I want to thank everyone for being here to celebrate with me and Jake," I began. I glanced at my parents, who were smirking. And I also want to take a moment to say something important. All my life, I was told I wasn't enough. Not pretty enough, not smart enough, not successful enough. I was told that unless I had the right husband or the biggest wedding, I would embarrass my family. The room went silent. But today, standing here, I realize something. The only embarrassment is letting other people dictate your worth. I'm proud of this wedding. I'm proud of Jake. And I'm proud of the life we're building on honesty, love, and hard work. That's more valuable than money or appearances. I paused. My parents shifted uncomfortably. And to those who think this wedding is small, let me tell you something. It's still bigger than the lies people tell to keep up an image they can't afford. Gasps rippled through the room. My parents' faces drained of color. They knew exactly what I was referring to. I didn't reveal all their financial mess in detail. I didn't have to. The implication was enough. Suddenly, the laughter turned on them. After that speech, everything changed. Guests who once admired my parents' perfect family started whispering. Relatives looked at them differently, no longer impressed by their fake status. My mom left the reception early, claiming she felt ill. My dad barely looked anyone in the eye. Ashley tried to spin it, saying, "Ella just doesn't understand how the world works." But people weren't buying it anymore. In the weeks that followed, the truth spread. Everyone in their social circle knew my parents were deep in debt, that their so-called high standards were built on nothing. Invitations to parties dried up. Their friends stopped asking about Ashley's wedding. Meanwhile, Jake and I thrived. We paid for our wedding ourselves, with no debt hanging over us. I continued building my career, and Jake got a promotion. A month later, my parents showed up at my apartment. My mom's voice trembled as she said, "Ella, how could you embarrass us like that? In front of everyone." I looked her straight in the eye. "Embarrass you? Do you even realize what you've done to me my entire life? You called my wedding humiliating. You treated me like I was nothing. All I did was tell the truth, that love and integrity mean more than lies and debt." They had no response. For once, they were speechless. I closed the door that day with no regrets. It's been over a year now since that day. Ashley's wedding ended up being much smaller than planned because my parents couldn't afford the extravagance. Ryan moved to another state chasing yet another job, leaving my parents alone in their quiet house. Do I feel bad for them? A part of me does. But mostly I feel free. For the first time, I'm living my life without their toxic shadow. Jake and I are happy, building a home filled with love, not competition. My parents once called my wedding an embarrassment. But in the end, the only thing embarrassing was their obsession with status and the way it crumbled for the world to see. And me, I finally learned that the greatest revenge is living a life that makes you proud, not anyone else. If you like my story, please like the video, subscribe to our channel, and share it with as many people as possible. Thanks for watching.